Baa Baa Black Sheep is a nursery rhyme that has been passed down through generations, charming children with its simple melody and playful lyrics. But have you ever wondered about its origins? Beneath its innocent exterior, this seemingly cheerful rhyme may be hiding a dark and intriguing history. Join me as we explore the meaning behind the familiar words and uncover its startling secrets. Welcome back, Darklings. Before we delve into its meaning, let's first revisit the most well-known version of this rhyme. Baa Baa Black Sheep, have you any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. 1 for the master, 1 for the dame, and 1 for the little boy, who lives down the lane. The most prevalent dark interpretation of this nursery rhyme is that it contains a racist slur and references the slave trade and cotton picking. However, most historians consider this interpretation unlikely and dismiss it. The earliest surviving publication of the rhyme is from 1744, and it likely circulated via word of mouth before then. The use of slaves on cotton plantations wasn't widespread until the 1800s, making this connection unlikely. Additionally, no publications of that era link the rhyme to slavery, and the woodcuts accompanying the rhyme all depict sheep and wool, not slaves. The most accepted theory of origin for the rhyme lies in the inequality, corruption, and injustices of England's wool trade. This interpretation is supported by the original wording of the rhyme, which portrays the little boy crying in the lane after not receiving any wool. While England's landscape is adorned with medieval castles, majestic cathedrals, and historic manor houses, few realise that it was sheep that funded many of these architectural marvels. Wool emerged as the driving force of the English economy from the 13th to the late 15th century and was described as the jewel in the realm. To this day, the seat of the Lord High Chancellor in the House of Lords is a large square bag of wool called the woolsack, a tangible reminder of the principal source of English wealth. English wool was highly sought after to fuel the thriving looms of Europe. During this period, affluent cloth-making towns across the continent were willing to pay premium prices for English fleeces. The wool merchants of the era were eager to purchase fleeces from both lords and peasants alike, which they would subsequently export to Europe. Recognizing this lucrative opportunity, successive monarchs imposed heavy taxes on the wool trade for hundreds of years, beginning with King Edward I. Given its bulk and the limited number of ports through which it was traded, wool was an easy target for tax collection. By 1290, England boasted an estimated 5 million sheep, yielding approximately 30,000 woolsacks annually. Merely a century later, an astonishing 63% of the Crown's total income was derived from taxes on wool, underscoring its pivotal role in the nation's wealth. In her book, The Real Personages of Mother Goose, Catherine Elwes Thomas suggests that the rhyme Baa Baa Black Sheep is a commentary on the new wool taxes imposed in England in 1294. Instead of merely taxing exports, the king, or the master, intended to seize all the wool in the country and release it only upon payment of a hefty duty of 40 shillings per sack. This controversial scheme, which became known as maltolte, or bad tax in Norman French, elicited widespread discontent. Pressured by Parliament, the king revised his strategy, with wool merchants, or the dame, agreeing to pay a customs duty instead. However, it was the peasant farmers, symbolised by the little boy who cried in the lane, who bore the brunt, forced to accept lower prices from the wool merchants. Another interpretation suggests that the dame in the rhyme symbolises the church. During an era when sheep equated to wealth, landowners amassed considerable riches, and the church owned vast expanses of land. Monks overseeing abbeys and monasteries assumed roles not only as spiritual leaders, but also as influential figures in politics and industry. Notably, the abbeys in northern England held a significant stake in the wool trade. For example, Fountains Abbey in Yorkshire boasted 18,000 sheep. However, this immense wealth often bred corruption. Religious institutions of the time were infamous for their drinking, gambling, and greed. This perspective is reflected in the earliest Robin Hood ballads from the 1400s, where Robin's arch-nemesis is the abbot of St Mary's Abbey in York, whose ruins still stand in York's museum gardens. In one tale, Robin Hood steals £800 from the clutches of a corrupt monk, an act that would have undoubtedly delighted the common folk. Over time, the church, benefiting from its vast land holdings and sizable flocks of sheep, forged direct trading connections with cloth manufacturers overseas. Meanwhile, peasant farmers remained constrained to dealing with wool merchants. From bypassing the merchants and dealing directly in bulk quantities, the church secured more lucrative deals, hence the master and dame, or the king and church, getting a bag full and the little boy getting none. Another interpretation of the little boy crying in the lane suggests that, rather than representing peasant sheep farmers, he symbolises the countless victims of the wool trade. As wool grew more profitable, communities focused on crop farming found themselves driven out by landowners. Medieval villages, where generations had lived and toiled on the land, were uprooted, their homes demolished to accommodate the burgeoning sheep industry. With sheep requiring far fewer labourers compared to crop cultivation, thousands suddenly faced homelessness and unemployment, plunging them into poverty and starvation. And as if these burdens upon the common shepherd were not weighty enough, there existed the additional challenge of purveyance, a royal prerogative allowing the monarch to acquire goods at prices below their fair market value. Established in the 11th century and finally abolished in 1660, within living memory of the rhyme's publication, purveyance was notoriously susceptible to abuse by corrupt officials. These officials frequently demanded goods in the king's name, only to sell them for their own personal profit. Given its high value, wool was often their prime target. Given the multitude of challenges faced by peasant farmers, it is plausible that the Baa Baa Black Sheep rhyme originated during these difficult times. However, there exists another theory regarding its origin. A fascinating aspect of this rhyme lies in the symbolism of the black sheep. While there are regions in England where a black lamb was viewed as a symbol of good fortune, many parts of the world consider a black sheep an ominous sign, even associated with the mark of the devil. This idea is echoed in contemporary language, where the term black sheep is often used figuratively to describe someone who brings disgrace or sorrow to their family. Historically, the earliest recorded instance of black sheep used in a derogatory sense can be traced back to an English Puritan, the appropriately named Thomas Shepherd, in an evangelical text from 1640. Perhaps then the black sheep in the rhyme is a derogatory representation of a particular individual, namely Cardinal Wolsey. Wolsey was a powerful figure in Tudor England, serving as the chief minister to King Henry VIII. Aside from his name containing wool, Wolsey was widely disliked and had many enemies at court. He was viewed as greedy for wealth, abusing his church privileges, and unchaste, with an illegitimate son and daughter. Wolsey used his influence and ecclesiastical power to amass personal wealth second only to that of the king. The contrast between the black sheep in the rhyme and the traditional imagery of white sheep, often symbolising purity and virtue, could symbolise Wolsey's perceived hypocrisy. It is speculated that Baa Baa Black Sheep, with its themes of unequal distribution and exploitation, could be seen as a reflection of Cardinal Wolsey's abuse of power and wealth. Alternatively, the rhyme we know today might have evolved from a response to a particular event connected to him. One significant event that caused widespread controversy during Cardinal Wolsey's tenure was his administration of the Amicable Grant in 1525. Although presented as a voluntary contribution from subjects to the king, it was, in reality, a heavy tax imposed by Wolsey on behalf of Henry VIII to fund a war against France. The Amicable Grant was particularly resented because it bypassed parliamentary approval, arriving just a few years after the implementation of other taxes, as well as a prior forced loan that remained unpaid to the populace. Such heavy taxation was bound to provoke significant opposition, and it did, especially in East Anglia, where cloth workers and other citizens strenuously objected, leading to violent resistance. The growing threat of rebellion forced the government to abandon the project. The failure of the Amicable Grant was a critical blow to Wolsey's authority and one of the key events that precipitated his eventual fall from power. But what do you think? Does Baa Baa Black Sheep find its origins in the inequality of the medieval wool trade, or could it be a covert symbol reflecting Cardinal Wolsey's abuse of power and wealth? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if your thirst for nursery rhyme origins still lingers, don't forget to subscribe and explore the rest of my channel. See you in a future video.